Corner, Luna commanded. Billy found her nose in the corner of the living room. Her massive rear was now firmly on display to all those traveling past, and as it was now getting dark, the lights from the house would only attract the attention of the passerbys. Now a little bird told me that 2 of my girls might have been fighting. But I know it wasn't you, Junior, because you already learned your lesson about being a naughty girl, didn't you? Billy nodded her head, not trusting herself to speak. She could feel Luna behind her now, and that sense of dread returned. Billy shivered as the demon slid her fingers under the waistband of her diapers and gave her rear a tap. No, it certainly wasn't you. Luna smiled, her mouth inches from Billy's ear. But just in case it was, you can stand here and think about what you did whilst the big girls get your stuff ready for tonight. What's happening tonight? Billy asked shakily. Oh, because I haven't got a babysitter, you'll have to come with me to P3. Luna laughed. Now don't move. She stressed, leaving Billy alone. It must have been only minutes that Luna and the tormentors left Billy alone for, but it seemed like hours. Billy could hear crashing, banging and giggling coming from the tormentors as they piled what they needed together. Billy then found herself being swept up in the din of noise. Her hair was pulled back and plaited, a pale blue tweenies shirt was roughly pulled on her, and her feet were covered by a pair of frilly white socks and a pair of white Velcro trainers. Before she could react, Billy found herself staring at a bulging diaper bag and the large bag for the boys' travel cot. Gulping, Billy turned and saw Luna stalking towards her, left arm behind her back. Summoning her wand, Luna gave Billy a toothed grin which made young witch feel very uneasy. Spinning the wand at Billy, Luna began. When the music starts playing and the beat is pumping, you have to dance like a child that's all running and bumping. I'll pin this on you with the power of 3. When in these pants you're my dancing baby. Billy looked down as a red and black diaper cover squeezed itself over the gargantuan mass of diapers around Billy's waist. The plastic pants were a full-cut pair of rumba panties, and 6 lines of frills flagged the massive padding between Billy's legs. Pulling the TV remote from behind the couch, the tormentor in the soccer shirt flicked the TV onto pop music station, and as Billy was subjected to an overtoned Madonna studio aided to sound cool, the young witch found herself dancing like a loon. There was no chance of a mature slow step with a beat that fast. Billy was instead waving, bopping, and weaving unsteadily on waddling steps whilst the music played. Finding herself being oogled by the tormentors, Billy tried to at least turn around and dance away from the demons, but she found that her couple of faltering steps to spin her body away from the imps caused her to instead spin fully around with her arms wide open for dramatic effect. Aren't you the little ballerina? The tormentor in the black and white teased. Luna switched off the TV and turned to the imps. Now you 3 behave whilst Junior and I are out. She warned the tormentors. Now sweetness, we had better go. We've got a lot to sort out to make sure you're ready for when the crowds arrive. She said, pointing the wand at the pile on the floor. Before pointing the wand at Billy, Luna stopped and looked at the young witch. I might loose you in the crowd, and I wouldn't want anybody to mess with you or your diapers whilst we're out. She nodded sagely. Spinning the wand at Billy's rumba panties, Luna added a strong-looking heart-shaped lock around their waist. The lock came complete with the phrase, "property of mummy," etched into the lock. Luna then aimed her wand and Billy and the 2 orbed out of the room. Phoebe turned, floated to Piper. The 2 sisters took each other's hand. At the mention of P3, both became very worried for Billy. The staff at the club knew Billy, and if Piper wasn't there they would probably not know what to make of the development of this demon turning up with Billy diapered and in tow. Piper's motherly instincts came to the fore, and all she could think of was how terrible for Billy it would be. Phoebe, however, was being more practical. All she could think of was where Luna was going to put Billy, because there was a possibility that the young witch would have access to some potions or weapons in the club. Maybe if Billy ends up in your office, then she could use the potions in your safe. Phoebe mused. I don't keep potions in the safe. Piper said defensively. Of course you don't. Phoebe smiled. I never thought I see your rumba panties again. Piper shuddered. I wish we never had them to start with. Phoebe said. And I can bet Billy will never want to see them again once she vanquishes this demon. The quicker we can get out of here the better. Piper finished. Then we can help make sure that Billy never has to suffer this ever again. Billy found herself orbed into an oversized car seat. The seat was wider and taller than a normal car seat, however it was of the same style as the one that Piper used for the boys. It was also a lot deeper and Billy was sunk into the seat so it encompassed her, making her feel very small. Beside her in the driver's seat of Piper's car, Luna was using Piper's voice to make arrangements at P3. As she casually told the staff that Piper was sick and she was taking care of business, the demon turned to Billy and popped a pacifier into the young witch's mouth. Even though Billy was secured by a 5-point harness and her arms were wedged in tight beside her body, the young witch tried to think of some way she could stop Luna from driving her to P3. With her only real choice being able to make Luna crash the car, Billy attempted to kick the stick into neutral but only succeeded in having the chair pushed backwards slightly to take her out of harm's way. Sighing, Billy felt like giving up and accepting her fate, but a gurgle from her stomach reminded her of just how far down Luna had forced her to sink, which increased Billy's resolve tenfold. Luna, who had obviously heard Billy's stomach, gave the young witch's knee a pat. "Trying to clear some more room in there, are you?" She laughed. "Well, don't worry, you're wearing enough diapers to last you the night. Even for a big messer like you. I'll just ask the staff for help." Billy gurgled defiantly around the pacifier. "Sure, and how exactly will you explain all this?" Luna motioned to Billy. "I know what you goody-goodies are like. No, you won't ask for help because otherwise you'll have to explain that I'm a demon and you're a witch. And I know the charmed ones wouldn't approve." Billy didn't know what to say. Luna was right and they both knew it. Looking back out the front window, Billy began to watch the streets roll by. "Don't get downhearted though, Junior." Luna smiled in mock sympathy. "I know something that will cheer you up." She nodded. Billy then felt immense pressure on bladder. She couldn't hold it and she wet her diaper in a sudden burst. The urine pooled and began to be absorbed, but as Billy was in a reclined position, the liquid not immediately absorbed flowed to the back of Billy's diaper before pooling there and finally disappearing as the diaper did its job. "Doesn't that make you feel all warm and fuzzy?" Luna laughed. Billy shut her eyes, bit back tears, and tried to ignore her situation. All too soon the car pulled up outside the back of P3. Luna left Billy secured in the car as she removed everything from the boot of the car in a single trip. Returning finally to Billy, the demon orbed the young witch out onto the damp floor of the alleyway. "Harness," Luna commanded, and Billy found herself strapped tightly to Luna. "Now it's time to go inside and get you set up," Luna said, dragging Billy inside by the reins. Billy tried to avoid eye contact as she walked inside. Most of the staff of P3, many who Billy knew by name, would be there tonight. Billy hoped that the unpleasant storm that was brewing would keep the crowds away tonight, as it usually did on the less busy Friday nights. Coupled to the fact that Piper hadn't booked a band to play meant that hopefully Billy would be spared some embarrassment. Her huge waddling behind, however, seemed to imply otherwise though. Being led directly up to the bar, Billy tried to keep her eyes on the countertop as Luna showed her off to the staff. "Now I'm the babysitter that Piper usually uses for the boys. However, tonight I have another charge. This little one is having some control issues and as such I have taken that responsibility from her," Luna explained loudly. Billy chanced a look around the club and saw everybody staring at her. And her huge diapers. "However, Piper is sick tonight and as such I have to be here as well. Don't worry, I'm not a pro, so I'm not going to be making many changes to the plans for this evening. All I can ask is that everybody keeps an eye out for any accidents and lets me know," Luna said, squeezing Billy's diapers as she said this. "Apart from all that, everybody should be okay. And it'll be bedtime soon anyway." Luna laughed. Billy looked up to the bar. She saw one of the shaggy barmen. He was in his early 20s and had the obligatory scraggy beard and unkempt hair that made him look cool, stare at Billy. His questioning gaze was piercing and Billy tried to just express a single word, help, to him through her eyes. Looking back into us, all Billy could see was pity. And that wasn't helpful. The young witch then found herself being pulled by the reins back towards Piper's office. Luna had clearly set up all she thought she would require in the office. In the center of the room, which usually doubled as the place that the bar staff could chill in when the club calmed down, the travel cot was set up. It looked to Billy that it hadn't been changed that much, as it was only slightly longer and not any taller than when the sisters had set it up in the office before. The soundproofing on the office made it the perfect place for Billy to be left. Of course, Billy knew that just because something looked unchanged, it was more than likely that Luna had booby-trapped it in some way. Rounding on Billy, the jailer of souls grabbed her by the wrist and forced Billy to look into her eyes. Listen, you, I have all the knowledge from the charmed ones at my disposal as well as their powers. You might think that you can use the confusion from tonight as some way to escape, but I can just simply call you to me with the Lost Witch spell, so know that there is no chance of your escape. Got it? Luna warned sternly. Billy nodded her head. She knew it was futile to argue with Luna whilst she had her harnessed to her, and it would be foolish to do so anyway. As the lights went down and Billy watched as the first few patrons began to enter the bar, the young witch tried to mentally prepare herself. Once thrust out into the club's main room, she would be dancing like an idiot whilst wearing wet diapers. She couldn't come out this with her head held high, but she had enough pride to know that if she paid attention, then she would eventually discover the secret to defeating Luna and rescuing her friends. And then she was out in the main room. The harness orbed from her in single moment as Billy turned back to look at Luna. Feeling a shiver run down her spine, Billy moved to the far end of the room to squeeze herself into a booth. Sitting higher due to her packed behind, Billy watched as the DJ fretted with his equipment trying to get the music going. Billy people watched as the club began to fill up. Whilst there was no music, Billy was completely safe. Her thoughts had been right, though the nasty weather had kept many people away, and within 5 minutes there were no more people walking through the door. Feeling the eyes of the bored bar staff upon her, Billy realized that the music was about to start. Trying to wrap her legs tightly around the center column of the booth's table, Billy prayed for the something to break down. Of course, that would never happen. Piper herself had designed the music station with the help of the DJ, so there were plenty of backups, and after a few minutes of fumbling with his head out of sight, the DJ reappeared and started spinning his wheels of steel. Billy clamped her hands around the edge of the table and tried to keep her legs tight around the column. At first it appeared to be working, as even though her head was bobbing along with the music, at least she wasn't running around like a crazy person. However, as the songs wore on, Billy found her legs loosening and her fingers tapping. A little voice inside her head kept repeating over and over, "Got to dance." Without really being aware of doing it, Billy stood up and began to bob in time with the Sugar Babes. It wasn't the usual bump and grind of the club either, it was the bobbing and spinning of a 2-year-old. Pretty soon Billy got dizzy and just ended up bobbing on the spot or having her head loll from side to side. Even though P3 was a lot emptier than it usually was, Billy could see plenty of regulars and people she knew moving around her in a big circle. She was a public spectacle, and her only saving grace at the moment was that her wet diapers were hidden by the massive bulk between her legs. The bulk also removed any of Billy's natural grace that she would have retained whilst dancing, and as the circle started becoming tighter and tighter around Billy, her dancing became worse and worse. She then felt a hand on her diapers as one of the braver elements of the crowd gave her diaper a swat. Billy then spun away from the guy's hands as she felt the mood of the people in the club change. A greasy-looking guy with olive skin advanced on Billy, taking her hands. He began to wiggle with Billy, who copied him with less than graceful movements. Looking her up and down like a piece of meat, the guy gave Billy a toothy grin. It was then his eyes stopped on the lock around Billy's plastic pants. It was at this Billy had to smile. The guy's eyes practically bulged in his skull. "Holy crap," the guy mouthed before dropping Billy's hands and retreating to the edge of the circle with his friends. Billy stopped smiling as she saw the information whip around both sides of the ring of people. It was then she could sense the mood of the circle turning. From a girl dressed in a silly costume to somebody who was locked into diapers, the wave of confusion, and with that anger, began to rise. Billy tried to force herself out of the circle, but as the music was still playing she was still dancing, and it was almost as if she was tied to the middle of the circle. Billy felt like every time she tried to move to the edge of the circle her body was pulled back into the middle to continue dancing. "We have to stop this," Paige stressed to her sisters. "We have to do something. We must be able to." "With what?" "We don't have our powers or the power of 3. Phoebe sighed. "Well, I'm not being defeated by some crystal," Piper announced. "There must be somebody here who knows what's happening." Billy felt like a prized animal. The circle's mood had changed again as the alcohol had started flowing. At least the bar staff had taken some pity on her and been prompt in serving drinks. The shaggy barman who Billy had pleaded to help her had even taken to coming out with drinks in hand, partly due to the fact that the bar wasn't busy and he was searching for a tip, but also because of the curiosity of seeing Billy in her current state. She guessed that he was trying to keep the mood of the crowd mellow as well, which was good for him and for the moment. Billy, however, gauging when to stop with the drink service could end up leaving Billy in a precarious position. As the night progressed and Billy became more and more tired with the constant dancing, she found herself looking longing across to the booths and tables. Even the bar from which she was attracting so much attention would offer her aching feet some respite. What was worse was that once again her bowels were begging to ask for relief. Billy was sure that Luna would not take her into the office until she soiled herself, but Billy did not want the indignity of doing so, as when she defeated the demon she would want to return to P3 with as much dignity as she could muster intact. As the night progressed and Billy became more and more tired with the constant dancing, she found herself looking longing across to the booths and tables. Even the bar from which she was attracting so much attention would offer her aching feet some respite. What was worse was that once again her bowels were begging to ask for relief. Billy was sure that Luna would not take her into the office until she soiled herself, but Billy did not want the indignity of doing so, as when she defeated the demon she would want to return to P3 with as much dignity as she could muster intact. Something deep inside Billy snapped. From deep inside the recesses of her mind that had been drowned out by the confusion and fear, a plan formulated. It was so complete but simple and uncomplicated at the same time. With no help, Billy could at least accomplish some of her goals. All that the young witch required was the courage to use a power that she had promised the sisters she wouldn't unless it was a dire emergency. And as Billy felt her stomach lurch and her sore knees ache, she decided that this was the emergency that she required. Billy allowed herself to relax. She had unfortunately found that she could now mess herself quite easily, and even if that wasn't a great skill, at least when she did it herself, Billy could pretend it was a choice she made rather than a pitiful act as the tormentors and Luna wanted it to be. At the final moment of her disgust, Billy let her emotions fill her. Feeling the magic within her build, she dug deep into her reserve of power and allowed her senses to permeate through into the minds of the crowd. Feeding her projection power, Billy took the crowd's collective mind and, to put it simply, changed it. She simply told the crowd she hadn't pooped herself. And with all that power in her projection, they all believed it. Weak or strong-willed, the power the young witch poured into the projection and the simplicity of it made it easy for the crowd to accept it. Luna, however, wasn't within the tight radius of the crowd and was therefore unaffected by Billy's projection. She was, however, more than aware of the sense of embarrassment and shame that the young witch felt on having messed herself and continuing to dance relentlessly. Smiling, the demon strode over to the crowd, who were either too intoxicated to care or simply unaware of the situation, had not reacted with the shock and awe expected. Deciding to give them a little show, Luna lifted Billy up onto her shoulder and placed a hand under the young witch's diapers. Giving the sagging garments a squeeze, Luna affected surprise. The crowd laughed with her but without sympathy for Billy as the demon walked into the back office with Billy frozen in place on her shoulder. Once inside the back office, Billy was sat on Piper's desk. As the uncomfortable mess was forced around her diapers, Billy stared around the back office. As expected, there were a couple of security guards and a couple of members of the bar staff having a quick break whilst the club was not busy. They all stared back at Billy, and the smell she had brought with her, not wanting to look but unable to turn away. Luna, however, was delighted with such an intimate audience and so wasted no time in unlocking Billy's dancing pants and laying the young witch face down and frozen on the desk. As the warm mess began to ooze down from the rear of her diaper, Billy watched as Luna took out Billy's diaper bag. Slapping out a large handful of thick multicolored diapers, Luna took out the changing mat and spread it on the floor. Billy found the lower portions of her body frozen, but other than that she was free to wiggle. Looking around as the staff members strode around agape, Billy saw that this might be her chance to escape. Reaching for the phone cord on the floor, Billy hooked her hand around it and pulled the fax machine down hard. The large white box froze in midair just above Luna's head, who wordlessly pulled out another handful of thick diapers and gave Billy a warning look. The young witch didn't know what she was more shocked by, the fact that she failed to get Luna or the fact that the demon had used her powers in front of mortals. Leaving Billy stuck as she was, Luna stood up and calmly placed the fax back on the desk. The bar staff looked shocked, but Billy could see that they were all frozen in place as the demon took up her wand and drained them of their souls. "I guess soundproofing works both ways," Luna laughed. "And now that I don't have a crowd to please." She gestured at Billy with her wand, and tormentors, in their dark oily form, shoot out from it. Grasping the young witch in their claws, they grabbed the baby wipes and diapering supplies and roughly cleaned and powdered Billy. Luna then swept her wand over the pile of diapers. "Diapers," the demon commanded, and Billy found her legs forced apart as the diapers orbed around her one at a time. By the time the pile was cleared, Billy could barely move because of the bulk around her waist. With her legs forced so far apart, Billy found sitting up difficult, and even as Luna unfroze her legs, Billy knew that moving would be next to impossible. "Shirt," Luna sighed. The tweenie's shirt appeared in her fingers. "Sleeper." Luna smiled as Billy found herself once again the garish garment. This time, however, the bulk around her midsection caused the sleeper to strain. Billy could feel the extra slack designed to hide her features being drawn down to try and encompass the disabling bulk around her waist. "Travel cot." Luna pointed, orbing Billy into the blue and white bed. Luna then strode over to the edge of the travel cot. Billy watched as the demon used the power from her wand to create a top, matching the rest of the cot, that sealed the young witch in the bed. Locking Billy in place, Luna turned to leave, but just as she was about to close to the door, the demon turned to the fax machine. Frowning at Billy and then at the machine, Luna chewed her lip as she thought. "Heavy bear," Luna said, pointing to the ground with her wand. A large pink teddy bear with a goofy expression on its face appeared beneath the wand. It then orbed above Billy's head and dropped on the young witch. Billy found herself stunned and the bear landed on her. It was at least as heavy as the fax machine, and as her vision swam as Billy fought to avoid passing out with concussion, Luna exited the room with a smirk. Billy succumbed to her head injury mere seconds after that. Positive that her best chance to escape had just deserted her.